there's dancing tonight. Why don't you hurry, hurry, hurry home? Why don't you hurry, hurry, hurry home? Look here, the shrimp boats is a-comin', there's dancing tonight. They go to sea with the evening tide, and the women folk wave their goodbyes. Vaya con Dios, vaya con Dios, while the South Texas moon floats on high, and they wait for the day they can fly.
In 1948 and 49, this was virgin territory for red shrimp, and there was an abundance of shrimp all the way from Aransas Pass all the way down to Campeche. And a lot of fishermen in Louisiana, their white stock shrimp was getting depleted, and this was a new market for red shrimp, so they came from Louisiana down to Brownsville, and my father was one of them in 1948, 49, and it was kind of hard for him to go from Brownsville back to Louisiana with his family. So he moved his family down here in 1950. There were 6 of us. I was the youngest. And he said, now, if you like Brownsville, we'll stay. If not, we'll go back. This is just a trial and error. He says, but right now, I'm going to shrimp in this area because there's money to be made. There's an abundance of shrimp. And like I said, it was like a virgin territory. No one had really come out here and fished it before. And the shrimpers were very knowledgeable with shrimp boats, because when they were born and they are waking up in the morning, the first thing they see is bayous, lakes, swamps, and marshes. So that's why they took a lead in coming over here, because they were already acclimated to the fishing industry. And at that time, in 1950, I was 3 years old, and since then we've stayed in Brownsville. I'm a second-generation shrimper. My father has passed away, but I am also still in the shrimp industry. We have 6 boats that we operate here. There's 2 at the dock right now. There's 4 that are shrimping. And shrimping is a seasonal, like right now from January to July is the off season. And we say the off season because there's not an abundance. From July to January is when most shrimpers do better. That's when the crop is at its best. And also a shrimp, it has a 1-year cycle. It starts spawning in April and May, and by the time February, March comes down, the shrimp is dying off. Shrimp has a 1-year or a 1.5-year cycle. Then the whole process starts again. The little baby shrimp starts to spawn, and then it grows in size until it gets to be marketable.
My name's Clyde Hebert. I was born in Morgan City, Louisiana in 1926. When I was about 15, 16 years old, I started shrimping. That was a big thing going on at that time. There was a lot of shrimp boats in the area, mostly. We worked in the summertime, school vacation, we'd go out on the boats. The boats was a lot smaller than they are now, and it was shorter trips, 5-6 day trips averaged out. And later on, I went to Merchant Marines, and then after the war, I went back shrimping. I come to Texas in 1947, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah, we came to Brownsville because we heard from truck drivers about the deep, the heavy, prolific shrimping over here off the Texas coast. And so we came over here in 1950 looking for those shrimp, and they were here. And when I came over here, I came over here as a half owner in one boat. And it was fairly successful here. It was really, really good. The conditions were great. I mean, there was no problem. It was like, you're working and you're getting paid for it. It was like playing and getting paid for it. It was fun, really, earning money over here. 1950, the shrimp basin wasn't here. It hadn't been completed. The ship channel was here, the deep water port, but not the shrimp basin. We were unloading in the deep water port, battling for space with the ocean-going ships, and that didn't work too good. But eventually they built the turning the shrimp basin, and of course everything moved there from then on. When I first came here, we had to move to Port Isabel. There just wasn't enough space in the deep water port and be mixing with those ocean-going ships.
I originally came from Kentucky. I was born in 1935. I went into service when I was 16, and when the Korean War was going on, I got out when I was 19. Went to work for Indianapolis, International Harvesting in Indianapolis, Indiana. Got laid off there, and at that time minimum wage was 75 cents an hour. I couldn't even get a job in Kentucky at 75 cents an hour. So I came down here in 57 and went shrimping as a header for, got $2 a barrel, which is 125 pounds. And I've been here ever since. I intended to come work a little while, make a little money, and go back. So I ended up being an accountant for a large company, and I worked my way up to where I make enough money to buy a boat, and now I have 11 boats.
My name's Gordon Williams. I live in Brownsville. I come to Brownsville in 1946 from West Texas, Big Springs. I was about 10 years old while we come to Brownsville. A man by the name of Curly Deaton was a friend of my father that would come down here in Brownsville, and Hausman was building a big meat packing plant on Boca Chica, which eventually turned into a shrimp processing house, trade winds. Anyway, he called up and told my dad that he had him a good job down here. My dad had been in the meat packing business up in West Texas. And so we come down here in an old Terraplane Hudson, an old car. I thought we'd never get down here. Oh, I think at 54 I started out at the port and went to work for the Fort Broward Steamship Agency. I worked out there 14 years on the dock. It was hard work, awful hard work. And I was a small man. Really, I shouldn't have been doing it because I was too small. And during that time, my mother and dad had opened up Paycheck Drive-In, which was at the port. And they had a restaurant there, and they fed all the longshoremen stuff. And back in, I guess, that was in the 60s. Anyway, my brother-in-law, Al Walker, which has been in the bait business for many years, while I was working there, started talking to me, and I got interested in catching bait. And I bought me a boat in Port Isabel. Had to have it financed through the bank. Had to have surveys and stuff for the bank. And I went shrimping on my spare time. And that was pretty hard, I'd do it in the evenings, on the weekends, and stuff like that. And anyway, a lot of times I'd have to deliver the bait to the Arroyo City, late at night, and then get up the next morning and go back to work on the docks. It was hard. And eventually I got out of that, and I was still at the port at the time, and they started building shrimp boats out here by Rockport Yacht and Supply. It must have been about 66. And me and my father was talking. We said, well, we'll pool our money and we'll build us a shrimp boat, a big shrimp boat. And we did, and I'd work on it on weekends, well, it was a steel hull. And we did build it. The hurricane hit in 67, I think Beulah hit. And during that time, the hull was finished, and I hadn't put it in the water, still sitting up next to this Paycheck Drive-In, which was at the port at the time. And the hurricane actually picked that up and set it over about it, a big steel hull, set it over about 2 foot, but it didn't turn it over nothing. And we finished it up sitting right there, and got house moved to move it to the water. And we named it Miss Sheila after my daughter.
Now, I'm going to take you through a shrimping trip. The first thing you do is you got to have a boat, of course, and you have to have a boat that's seaworthy, in good condition. Then you have to have a crew. You have to have a captain, a good rig man, and a good header. Captain, he's the man in charge of the vessel. The rig man, he does the winch, he sews nets, he's the cook. He's a man of a jack of all trades. And then the header, he's the lower man of the echelon. And what he does, he heads shrimp, he washes dishes, he sweeps the floor, cleans the boat, and he watches wheel, but not like the captain. The primary wheel watchers are the captain and the rig man.
Say we leave the dock, and I'm going to fish right straight off the bar here, say in deep water. Well, I leave it, say at 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I run about 6 hours, come about 6 o'clock at this time of the year right now, and we put overboard, and sometimes if it's real clean, we make 1 drag. Sometimes if it's real trashy, we make 2 drags. And it hasn't been anything during the daytime, you know, so we just drop our anchor and try it again the next night. You know, the crew, I run the boat. See, I'm captain, me. The crew takes care of the shrimp. I'm on an ice boat. The rig man ices them. And like a lot of fellas, like this fella, no. But like me, I cook breakfast while they're doing that, and when they finish, they eat, and then we lay down. Then you get up in the afternoon, the rig man start the cooking. I check the engine down below for oil, you know, for the water and everything, clutch and everything, check everything, and then we crank up and check the tickler change, you know, if we have to pull them in to get trash off them, you know, from the night previously. And that's about all there is to it. And then in the season, sometimes we go around the clock. You know, we take 4 or 5, you know, two or three extra guys with us. Give them so much per box. But the rig man and the captain, the captain makes 55% majority, and the rig man makes 45%. And then, you know, this time of the year, you can give a header $25 a box because the shrimp is big and the price as well. But in the season, you can't pay them as much. The shrimp are smaller and the price is not as good. And you got to carry more crew with you, see? More expense for me and the rig man because we're the one that pays the grocery bill. And, you know, and if we're on the ice, we have to pay half ice. That's about it.
I'm Maris Khan, and I was born in Morgan City, Louisiana. My daddy was a shrimper, and he come here in '48. He bought a house. Me and my mother and the dog come to Brownville on a train. Back then they had passenger trains. That was the only way to travel. There ain't no more trains. First time I went out, we went to Campeche. That's a 72-hour run, and I was sick for 72 hours. I weighed 210 pounds, and I made 3 trips, and I went down to 140 pounds. I was a header at 57, about 60. I started rigging. In 66, I got a boat to run. I started running boats in 66.
So here we are, we have a boat, we have a crew, and now we got to get the boat ready to go fishing. So what does that involve? First of all, you're going to go out at sea. We used to go out 15 to 20 days on an ice boat, but now we're going out 30, 40, 50 days on a freezer boat. And what does that mean? That means when the shrimp hits the deck, we can take that shrimp and freeze it fresh at sea. And you can stay out longer. And that freezer is 20 degrees below zero. So these freezers are well equipped and they work real well. And if you wanted to, you could stay out 6 months or a year, but you're limited because you have to come in for fuel. You run out of fuel. So okay, we have the boat. It's a freezer boat. You got the crew. What do you need to do? First of all, you got to go buy fuel. These vessels carry anywhere from 12,500 to 17, 20,000 gallons of fuel. That's a lot of fuel. The engine burns about 20 gallons an hour. You know, you go every week and fill up your car, you get 20 gallons, you kind of complain of the price. But just imagine this vessel right here burns 20 gallons in an hour. So you get your fuel, and then you have to have groceries. You got to eat for 30 days. So you go to the grocery store, and the grocery bills run anywhere from $800 to $1,500 for a trip. Then you got to get your nets. You got to prepare your nets. You got to get your doors. The doors are what we call that spread the net. So you got to put them on there. If you notice, the doors over there, the nets. You have your little tri-net. And all of this stuff, anywhere from a cup, a coffee cup, to a radar, to a life-saving equipment. You notice they have rings on the boat. They have also life rafts. There's a lot of things that are involved in a shrimp boat. And it's a family-orientated business, and you try to help yourself, because once you're out at sea, it's kind of like a brotherhood, because when you're out at sea and something goes wrong, another shrimper usually comes and helps you. There's no service stations, or you can't call 911. Of course, you can call the Coast Guard to come and help you, but usually we do our own helping between ourselves. They have people that are welders. They have people that are mechanics. This business, like I said, touches a lot, probably more so than any business that I know. You have to have a CPA, accountants. You also have to have people who come and buy the shrimp and sell the shrimp for you, because, you know, catching it is not the only part. You got to sell it. So you have brokers. You take this shrimp, you have to put it in a freezer, and when you put it in the freezer or the cold storage, there's people working there that sort out the shrimp according to sizes. They put them in 5-pound boxes. They put them in 50-pound master cartons, and then this shrimp is sold and shipped all over the world. On technology, I guess the first thing is we had what they call a single rig. We pulled one net. Then we had a better idea. Ford's not the only one that had better ideas. So then we started pulling 2 nets. And then from 2 nets, we started pulling 4. So right now we're pulling quad rigs. In other words, 4 rigs or 4 nets. That's probably one of the biggest or major improvement as far as catching shrimp. The other thing that was important is we used to have cotton nets, and cotton would tear real easy. So then we evolved into nylon nets, nets that are stronger, and they don't tear as much. So you don't have to sew on them. They last longer.
I've been fishing down here since '53. That's for the good days. Okay, each one of these hangers are 4 inches and 4/4 and a quarter. And it's from the end where it hooks onto the doors, it's 3 feet. I'll mark them off in just a minute. I'll hang it so you can get the idea of it. Every 3 mashes I go in here. Go all the way down here. See the other end, the bottom, this is the bottom of the net. It's already hung in.
The next thing was the boats themselves. We used to have wooden boats. There's nothing wrong with a wooden boat, but after a few years it gets deteriorating from dry rot or worms eating the lumber. So then we went to fiberglass and steel hull. Now steel hull is probably the most popular shrimp boats right now. What's the advantage of steel hull? They don't rot like wood. They're sturdier, it's stronger, you can take stronger seas. So that's been a big improvement too, steel hulls.
I'm working at the present time for a man that has 11 boats, and mostly wooden boats, and consequently there's a lot of work on a wooden boat because time has taken its toll on the wood, and it's beginning to show. And we have to replace a lot of lumber in these boats, and the engines, of course, are mostly diesel. In fact, all the fishing boats are diesel, and you can change those around. You can overhaul them and put new pistons and liners, and it's just like a new engine when you rebuild an engine, and all replaceable parts, and mostly Caterpillar and General Motors engines is what we use. And at the present time, we have off-season, sort of. There's not that much shrimp out in the Gulf, and that's why we're working so hard these next 2 months to get the boats ready for a later date when the season does open completely, when the shrimp migrate out into the Gulf, and then the boats will be ready to harvest that crop, that particular crop. And
the other thing that's really been amazing is electronics. We didn't have any electronics at all. The old radio that you had to take the cover off and spit on the tubes to get it going, get the tubes warm. Now we got such things as LORAN. A LORAN, you can take a reading from one station and another station, and it gives you a cross-reference. And you can pinpoint, like where we're standing right here, I could take a LORAN reading and we could pinpoint that we're standing right here at this place. Now that's how intricate this instrument is. We have fathometers, we have automatic pilots. Now we have plotters, you know, the computer age. Now what the plotter does is you can take a drive, a disk drive, and you can put it in the computer, and you can plot out the whole Gulf of Mexico or a certain area, and you can focus on that area. And if you're shrimping in that area, then you can just stay in there, and it tells you where all the hangs are. And with the LORAN and the plotter, you can drag up to a sunken ship, and when you get to that reading, you turn around, and that way you don't tear up your nets. That has been one of the greatest improvements, is the LORANs for not tearing up your equipment.
I'm the captain on the Kentucky Gal. This is the Kentucky Gal. My name is John Batto. And on the equipment we got here, we got a plotter, we got a backup LORAN, we got a radio, and we got a radar here that we work by. And this here functions to lay out trails for us that we can follow. And it's got a mileage on it that we can increase. This is on a 10-mile scale on top. And it starts out right here. We're at the house. This is right where we're located right now here. This blinking little Pac-Man is right here, and we're here. And I'm going to increase the range and see if I got any of my old plot lines still on here. You can see. If not, I'll make a trail up that you can see how the plotter works. I'm going to put it up to about a 100-mile scale and see if there's anything left on it. All the little X's are coming on the screen. Those are all the bottom obstructions that are right offshore here and run for about, this is about 70 miles up to the top and down here at the bottom. Now this is the curve of Mexican water down here. That's why you see nothing down below it, and everything's above it. And as you know, it continues on down, and there's where I was working. That line up there. Let me see if I can bring it down here again. See, there's a trail. That's the trail that I was fishing, right there with all them lines there. Those are my trail markers.
I don't have to tell you that anytime the government gets involved in your business, it's kind of like micromanagement. They're way off in one area. They really don't know what's going on. It's not hands-on management. And what happens is they have all these theories and they put them down on paper, but in reality they don't really work. And we try to educate them, but it just seems like the political process, just because they're government agencies, they have other groups that are out there pushing their buttons. So we really had a hard time with government regulations. For example, the TEDs. We kept telling them that we're going to lose shrimp. And you know, sometimes the government goes, it's not truthful with it. They say, oh no, it doesn't lose shrimp. TEDs don't lose shrimp. Well, in ideal conditions, it won't lose shrimp. But when you put it out in the Gulf with all these animals and all this, the trash you have in the Gulf, well, that's when you start having problems. So we've had a lot of problems with government regulations. It doesn't seem like it's getting any better. One thing they tell you says, hey, y'all don't want to work with us. We have worked with them. We have been back and gone that extra step, and I haven't seen any good results from them. It's hard to work with the government regulations and people who don't go out there at sea. And I can't say it any other way, that if you are not out there and you don't get your hands dirty, you really don't know what's going on. Even when you're a little boy, you always, you know, you wonder, how does a boat float? You know, especially a steel hull. You imagine a wood boat floating, but even a steel hull. What propels or kinetic energy is used to push all that steel? It's fascinating. Also, a lot of people always dream about going out at sea. Some people get seasick, some don't. There's always going to be that fascination about the sea and what's under the sea. You know, when you look on land, you can look around and you can see, you know, you can see the grass, you see the buildings. When you go at sea, you just see water. And there's always that mystery of what's under the water. And I think that will fascinate people for, you know, the rest of human, you know, mankind. They'll always be fascinated with that. And if you know, right now they say that the sea is the last frontier because of that mystery of what's under there and what governs all of that. How does it operate? How does it flourish? How does it replenish itself year after year? As far as the shrimping industry, I think there will be a shrimping industry, but if the government doesn't change their ways, they're going to choke this industry to death. And they keep saying, well, you know, at least we're letting you fish. Yeah, they're letting you fish, but eventually people won't be able to afford the shrimp if they continue with these regulations.
Okay.
Su premio especial. Vaya con Dios, vaya con Dios, con la luz de la luna se va, y saber que pronto